Okay, we're in Math 120. We're on Project C now. All right, so if you're sharing notebooks, I do recommend use a Jupyter notebook to share that. It's really easy to share Jupyter notebooks. And although I don't have the statistical numbers down, I think most people that are using Sage probably are using Jupyter notebooks to share their work with other people. And they're not using LaTeX or Sage Tech, they're using a Jupyter notebook. It's a really nice way to share these big problems that people are doing. And I mean, really mean that. Like in data analysis, people are creating like really big projects, not projects at the size of what we're doing. All right. Now, I want to point out in the past, we had two ways of launching Sage. One way is to just go to the Finder and go into your applications folder, look for Sage, double click on it, and it's going to launch Sage, and then you would do this over here. I'm just going to close it out. That's one way to do it. Now, the other way to do it is if it's most like if you use it a lot, it's in your Sage Math. I'm sorry, it's in your docs of Sage Math. You could also click on this, and what's it going to do? The same thing. It's going to give you an offering. Do you want command line, or do you want to use a Jupyter notebook? I'm going to close it out. I want to point out there's another way of launching it, and that's from the command prompt. So I'm going to open up a terminal, and I'm running a shell, and this is a Unix shell. And what I'm going to do is, since I use Sage so often, I don't have to type in the path to it. What I do is just use the up arrow, and I'll do that. And the first thing I notice is that I'm getting something that's really a really long command. I hate to type that in, by the way, but really, what is that command doing? It's launching Sage, right? It's a lot, but just one up arrow. Now, someone says, why is that? Well, it's because I use Sage so often, it's just there. Now, if you're not using Sage, though, that would not be in the first up arrow. There might be other commands down there. But you should learn how to use a command prompt if you're thinking about moving forward in a STEM-related career. You want a skill set, right? You want a skill set. Let me just give you an idea. Let's say I typed in ls. That's a listing of files. Let's say I did top. What's that going to do? It's going to give me the process viewer. I'll quit that out. Let me clear. And I'm going to use the up arrow now, just to go through this with you. Clear would be the first one. That's because the last thing I just typed in. What's the one before clear? That was top, right? What was before top? ls. What was before ls? That was the Sage command. I got that right over there. Hit return. Sage will launch. What version am I running? 9.4. And I'm using Python 3.9.5. All right? Let me close out this window over here. And I don't know if I want to type in everything over here, but this is my third project. I think I'm getting a little better at this. So I'm going to do reset. I'll do clear first. And then I'll do reset. By the way, clear has no effect on anything in the computer except for the screen. It just clears the screen out. Now, reset has an effect, though. It clears out any kind of memory that's laying around. I'm going to define the variable x. So x is a var, and it's x. I want to emphasize, if you've been paying attention, it's a default variable. You don't need to define it in Sage, but I think it's a good idea to do so anyway. And now I'm going to assign the function f of x. I'm going to assign that. That's one equal sign, the sine of x squared minus 3. You must use the star plus 1. All right. Now, if I just want to do something like, like I would say a dirty plot, I could just do plot f of x. One argument. And what is it going to do? It's going to launch a PNG view, and I get a plot of f of x over here. Now, by the way, when I do that over there, I noticed they're not giving me the range I want. All right, they're not giving me -1 to 4. But I think I have some memory. I think I kind of have some memory of doing this. And what I want to do is I want to try again. I'm going to say x min would be equal to -1, and the x max is going to be equal to 4. All right? And I'll hit return. Now again, if you studied the material that we did in Math 119, this stuff should look very familiar to you. Now, if you're the kind of student who just does what your teacher tells you to do and you haven't done prior work, this might be really difficult to look at. All right? But I got another picture over here. Now, by the way, I'm wondering, it says use Sage to find all the roots and relative extrema. Wow. Well, you know what? I know let me count them up. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 roots. By the way, if you need to cheat by looking at the code, no big deal. Cheat, look at the code. So what do I mean by that? We did reset, we defined a variable, we defined a function, we plotted it. It may look a little bit differently the way they did it, but we did plot it. Finding the root, let's go through this. And this is something we did in Math 119. Let me clear the screen again. I want to repeat this. This has no effect on anything that I've stored. I want to find the root. And someone says, where are you going to look for the root? Well, the root I'm looking for is f of x. And I'm going to say over here, the root means it's equal to 0. All right? And I'm going to give it bounds. Now, where's my first root? Looking at the picture, I'm going to say it's somewhere between -1 and 0. Now, someone's going to say, oh, no, in your notes you say it's between -0.8 and -0.4. That's true as well, but it's also between -1 and 0. And what's the root going to be? Well, looking at it, looks like, 0.246, about 0.6, all right? -0.6. Well, gave me the answer. By the way, the same answer is listed over here. You get the idea. Now, let me just block this one. I'm going to do the next root now. I'll use the up arrow to get that command, and now I want to go between 0 and 1. And that says about 0.38. It's right over here. Now let me do the next one. I'm going to pull it over. And I'm going to say that one appears to be between 2 and 3. Again, I'll move that over so you make sure you know that. I'm doing this root over here. All right? What does it give me? 2.6, yada, yada, yada. Let's find the next root. You know how good Sage is at this. You have to do this by hand. It'd be very difficult, by the way. And maybe I shouldn't say very. It's more difficult than typing something in. So up arrow, and that's going to be between what? I'm going to say between 3 and 4. Right? All that code is down over there. I may use different bounds on it, but that's not going to change. By the way, they also said find Extrema. Right? Let's talk about that. And I want to find the local. So find. Now, a lot of times what's going to happen is you're going to do something, but you can't remember. So what I did was I just typed in FIND, and then I hit the tab button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, what am I looking for? Find local minimum, right? Oh, no, maximum, I'm sorry. And I'm going to say I want the local maximum of the function f of x. And I'm going to, outline it to you. I'm not going to use their bounds or use them here, but the maximum looks like it's over here somewhere. It's a local one, right? By the way, it may also be global, but it's local in this region over here. I'm going to say between -1 and 0. And let's be careful about this. When I type it in, it tells me something. And I want to tell you, it tells me the maximum value is 1. No surprise there. I'm seeing the maximum value 1. And it says it occurs at the x value. And this might look backwards to you. They actually gave me y first and then the x. It occurs at -0.17. So that's -0.17 over here. I think you get the idea. Now remember, I could also do local min, right? Let me do that again. Let me do find. I'm going to hit the tab, and I want to do local minimum. All right, let's do that. And I'm f of x, and I'm going to say, where's the local minimum? It looks like it's between 1 and 2, I'd say. And let's see how it does. And it does it pretty well, right? What does it say? The local minimum is wow, that's weird, -9.48. It's right over here. That's the y value there. And then, what's this thing over here? Well, it's the value where it occurred. It occurred at 1.5 over here. All right? So I'm feeling pretty good about that. You can type in the rest of the code. Not so much the point of it. The point of it is getting your feet wet with sort of like commands that might be useful for you. All right? So I'm going to emphasize that, I would love for you to read through what we write down for you. If you have any issues with it, please bring it to my attention, by the way. But, for the most part, I put the graph down, and these graphs are automatically generated using Sage Tech. All right? You may want to learn about that, and you have access to those documents to learn about it. All right? Let me see where we are now. Project D is next up. So I'm going to call it quits.